Hey, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Fayetteville Public Library. My name is Joel Bunch. I'm a reference librarian, and tonight we're going to be joined by members of the Global Safe Soil Movement. This movement is designed to create awareness and prevent soil extinction and to activate and demonstrate people support for soil regeneration policies across all nations. After tonight's presentation, if you're interested in connecting with them or learning more, they have materials in the back available for free. And also in the back, there's a box for feedback forms you would have seen in your seat. We would love to hear what you thought about tonight's program. So please join me in welcoming the Global Safe Soil Movement. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for taking out your time and stopping here to listen to this wonderful information about this project. It's called Safe Soil. Now, like the name suggests, Safe Soil, people would start wondering, like, how can we save soil, right? Because that's something that's in abundance all over, right? You see everywhere. What is happening? Is soil dying, or why this huge movement where every international organization is looking into this? So before I begin, let me just give a brief introduction about myself. My name is Gaurav Agarwal. I work with Walmart as a senior software engineer. And I'm part of this movement along with the team here in Bentonville. It's a global movement. Now, before I talk about this movement, about saving soil, I would just like to, quickly ask all of you, like, what do you all think? What this might be, the save soil? What does it ring any bell? Are you all already aware? Yes, please.
I'm assuming it's nutrient depletion, and we get a lot of food from farms, and if that nutrient depletion continues and doesn't get replenished, then we're in a bad way with food. So.
Yeah, very nice. Excellent. Anybody else who wants to try out? Yeah, that's very close, and actually, we'll go deep into it and try to understand what exactly it is. Now, when we say save soil, what we mean is the soil is getting extinct. It's on the verge of extinction. Literally, the soil would still be there, but it would be more like dinosaurs, right? It's gone. So how does soil becomes extinct? Soil changes to sand, right? If we do not take care of the soil, it converts into sand. And we all know that we cannot do any farming on the sand, and it makes a fertile land as barren. So when we say save soil, or we want to save soil from getting extinct, what we mean is we want to save soil from becoming sand, right? Now, let's look at some things we will be talking about today, right? Now, as you said rightly, that the organic content of the sand decreases, which means that we are not really getting the nutrition from the sand, even if we grow crops and eat fruit and crops, right? So what all things happen, right? Why we want to do this save soil movement? Now, first thing is soil and food crisis, right? If we have sand that's converted to, if you have soil which is converted to sand, we really don't have any proper food which we can grow. And then definitely there would be nutritional deficiency, right? And it impacts a lot of biodiversity. What I mean is there are microorganisms inside of soil which would be extinct when it changes to sand. And as you know, that even if a small species becomes extinct, it's a huge loss of the biodiversity, and it can impact mankind in a lot of ways. So along with that, climate change is one of the things that's also related to soil. When soil absorbs water from rain, that in turn is responsible for global warming and things. It's related to climate change as well, including the temperature. Now, water security, it has to do with the retention of water inside of the sand and soil. Loss of livelihood. Think about so many people who are relying on farming today, right? They would not be able to farm, they'll not be able to grow crops. So definitely it impacts in livelihood. So now that I gave you a background about what soil extinction looks like, what are your thoughts, right? Right now, it may not seem like a very urgent thing, right? But if you think about the next generation that's coming, it may be a huge thing for them that they are not getting the proper nutrients. Even if they are eating, if they have food, but as long as they get the nutrients, it works for them. But food is of no value if there are no nutrients inside of it. So I would just like to open it up, ask your thoughts that, okay, this is something which is happening and it may impact us in a big way in the coming 15 to 20 years if we do not do anything about it right now. So what do you think? What, as individuals, what can we do? Any thoughts or any inputs you all think?
Have cheaper foods with more quality.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's very good.
That means targeting how the cheaper foods are produced.
Yes, yes. Yeah, that's definitely an option. Yeah, so like you said, we can grow cheaper food. We can think about ways of how to retain the organic content of the soil, right? There are actually very simple ways of doing it. That okay, that how can we retain it? We'll come to that, but I'll give you details on how we can contribute and how our voice matters, right? Now, the most important thing here to know is a lot of people in the world are not really aware about the severity of this issue. This, we are talking about the upcoming generations. We want to leave a planet in a way that the next generation should be proud of us and should not, think about that, hey, they did not do right things, right? They should have left something, left nutrients for us. We don't want to consume it all. It's just like sowing a tree or growing a tree, right? Even if we know that we are not going to eat the mangoes, right? But we end up, planting trees so that the next generation can benefit. And that's why we want to save this soil from becoming sand, and that's where this entire movement is all about. Now, if you look at this picture here, this is what the actual soil with organic content looks like, right? It has a whole lot of ecosystem going on there. There's a lot of micro biomes, and there's organic content. Now, if like now we have around 40% of the global soil is having less than 0.5% of organic content, and the minimum required organic content is 3%. And that's what the soil changes to if we do not do the recommended processes, right? So that's why this urgency that, hey, we have to take care of this right now before it's too late, right? So I'll just play a small video that young people are explaining what exactly we mean by this movement. Let's open this.
Many civilizations have risen and fallen.
But for our generation, all of humanity is under threat.
We're facing climate change.
Every year, there are huge floods and droughts.
800.
Many civilizations have risen and fallen.
But for our generation, all of humanity is under threat.
We're facing climate change.
Every year, there are huge floods and droughts.
800 million people go to bed hungry.
2 billion people are not getting enough nutrition from their food.
2/3 of our wildlife has been lost in the last 50 years.
But there is something we can do about this. There's a solution to all these problems.
and it's right here under our feet.
Healthy soil can be a solution to climate change, floods, droughts, food shortages, loss of wildlife, and more.
But first, what makes our soil healthy?
It's not just earthworms, ants, and badgers that live in the soil. Healthy soil is teeming with microscopic life. 1 teaspoon of soil contains more microorganisms than there are human beings on this planet. Thousands of varieties of nematodes, fungi, bacteria, and more. Each one has an important role to play in the ecosystem of our soil. Some of them break down organic matter, like dead leaves and animal waste. This provides food for plants and other creatures. Others break down the minerals in particles of sand. This provides plants with the nutrition they need, and in turn, the nutrition we need. These little soil creatures are essential to life on this planet. In fact, without all these soil creatures, soil would be just sand. Soil is our life. Food comes from soil, clothes come from soil, and books. But all over the world, our soil is dying.
One indicator of healthy soil is earthworms.
In the UK, 3 in 7 of the fields have low earthworm numbers. That's a lot of unhealthy soil. In fact, in Europe, 2/3 of the soil is in an unhealthy condition. Another way of knowing how healthy soil is by measuring the amount of organic matter.
Here in Italy, it's pretty bad.
The soil in Italy has only 1.2% organic matter. For soil to be healthy, it should be at least 3% to 6%. And less than 1% means the soil is essentially a desert. In India, about 2/3 of the soil has less than 0.5% organic matter. Another indicator of soil health is the depth of topsoil. Topsoil is the top of the soil, where most of the life is.
Here in the US, we have lost 50% of our topsoil.
Another indicator of soil health is desertification. That means when land has become a desert. In Africa, 45% of the land is desertified.
And the UN estimates that by 2030, we will lose 2/3 of the land we grow crops on.
It doesn't take a genius to realize that if our soil is unhealthy, our food quality reduces too. For example, if I want to get as much nutrition as this plate of salad would have provided 100 years ago,
Now I have to eat all of this. I can't eat that much.
And this isn't just about food quality, it's about food quantity.
unhealthy soil means less food for everybody and less reliable harvests.
This is about climate change.
Healthy soil is a huge carbon sink. A carbon sink means something that takes in carbon and stores it for a long time. That's helpful because it means that the carbon is held in the soil instead of in our atmosphere as carbon dioxide, which you probably already know is a big contributor to climate change. Our soil actually stores 3 times more carbon than is in the atmosphere, but unhealthy soil loses carbon. It contributes to climate change instead of being a solution. An unhealthy soil doesn't store water, so when it rains, the water doesn't soak into the ground and we get floods.
And once the flood is over, we get droughts.
This is about our future. By 2050, UN agencies say 90% of the Earth's soils could be degraded.
Unless we act now.
Because we can turn this around.
It's possible to bring our soil back to health if we take care of it.
We can do our farming in ways that make our soil healthier.
By getting more organic matter into the ground and creating conditions where the soil life can thrive, we can make soil into a solution. Where our soil is able to store water so that we don't get floods and droughts. Where our soil helps us reduce climate change emissions instead of being a cause of it.
Where our soil supports our wildlife to thrive.
We need to make sure it happens. And that means making sure everybody knows. Because we are not government officials, politicians, or farmers.
But we do have a voice.
If everyone knows how important soil is,
If everyone knows that we can't go on treating it like dirt,
If everyone knows we need to take care of our soil,
Then change will happen.
This is our future.
and soil is our solution.
Let's make art about soil.
write a poem about soil.
we can also write letters to our elected leaders.
We can use our voices and creativity to bring soil to the top of the world agenda.
Let's make it happen.
All right.
Many
So
sure say-
yes, we saw that what an impact this can have, if we do not act now, and we'll discuss how can we contribute and stop this from happening. Now, if you see the soil degradation map here, right? In the last 150 years, most of the topsoil has been lost because there is no awareness on towards this. The farmers are not aware about what needs to be done. The governments are not aware about it. The impacts is not known. So another thing is the urgency, because right now we plan to start it as a recommendation, which can eventually take a shape of the law going down the time. But right now, if you see the statistics, these are very scary numbers. That when we say that the minimum organic content should be 3% to 6%, that is the bare minimum that would give us the nutrients that we would get from the crops from that soil. Now, if you look at it, 0.5% in India, 50% all over the world are degraded. 50% of America's topsoil is lost. So this is all over America, Europe, Asia. It's a global problem, and every nation needs to act on it at a very urgent rate, because this is, if we can tackle it now, it would be way simple than 15 years down the line. Now, here are some stats which say the organic content in different countries. As you can see, not a single country meets the minimum requirement. That's not a good number at all. And we are losing a lot of soil, around an acre. Every second we are losing an acre of soil. And look at the last one. By 2050, 90% of Earth's soil could be degraded. So what that means is, if we do not act now, by 2050, no matter what crops people grow, 90% of that would not have enough nutrients for our healthy well-being. So we, as you can see, we are actually, this is not a movement for us. This is a movement for the next generation along with us, because definitely it will help our next generation remain healthy, stay healthy as for the organic content, right? 1 acre of soil becomes sand, 90% of the sand gone by 2050. What would happen after that, right? So thankfully, a lot of powerful people in the world have already taken this up, and we are determined that we would not let this happen, and we would retain the quality, the nutrients of the soil needed. So let's talk about some food crisis that this is causing. So every now and then, there are media news which covers this, and you can see that how soil is playing this role for food security and food crisis, hunger pandemic. We have so much land, but we are really struggling with the hunger pandemic, right? So food shortages, right? Because the quantity of the food needs to be more to provide the same amount of nutrient, right? And these are some statistics. If you can see that how many people suffer from hunger globally, it's 800 million. And just in US, it's 40 million people, right? So in a way, we can prevent this from continuing, right? Because 95% of this food is coming from the soil, and then soil is not having the content, and the food needs to be produced in plenty to meet the same minimum requirement, right? So let's talk about the deficiency in numbers. Let's take a look at some of the minerals that are missing right now already, right? So the soil is supposed to be the source for potassium, vitamin E, vitamin K, magnesium, vitamin E, vitamin C. Now we know why our doctors prescribe those pills that, hey, we need to have vitamin D, we need to have vitamin A. And that's because we are not getting it from our food, right? So, as you can see, the minerals, the nutrition are continuously dropping from, historically in 1914, it was way, way better. And every year from there, it's on a downward roll. So we are seeing that earlier in 1975, it was better, and now see it has dropped 27%. Iron level have dropped 37%. Vitamin A has dropped 21%. Vitamin C 30%, and all because of soil depletion, right? Like this, look at this point here. That there was a recent study which was done, and they would say that earlier when say our grandparents were there, they would eat one orange and they would get the same amount of nutrient, same amount of vitamin A, which we would need 8 oranges to get now. So you have to eat a lot, right, to cope up with the deficient minerals. So, and we cannot eat a lot. So the only way is that we have to increase the nutritional value of the soil, so that the food, the fruits, the crops have it, right? And when you look at the biodiversity impact, right, I think one of the slide also mentioned that 1 teaspoon of soil has more living organisms than there are people in the world. So just imagine, we just pick up a spoonful of soil, and there's a whole ecosystem. It's a different world in there, and it's all dying just because the awareness is not there that what needs to be done, how can we save it, right? And there are so many species that are extinct. Example, we all know about dinosaur, the polar bears are still there, but a lot of things are happening around extinction, which we can stop, which we can prevent, right? 27,000 species are going extinct. That's the scientific number. Now, I would play a small video showing how does it affect climate change as well. So.
And with warning with increasing urgency that as temperatures continue to rise, so does our chances of seeing a resurgence of catastrophic drought and dust storms similar to the 1930s.
Let me tell you how it was. I don't care who describes that to you. Nobody can tell it any worse than what it was. And no one exaggerates that. There is no way for it to be exaggerated. It was that bad.
About 10 miles outside of town, the visibility was just very, very poor.
We stopped by the side of the road and waited until we could see.
I had to pull over because I couldn't even see the lines on the road.
We drove on home, and we found out when we got out, we were so short on oxygen we could hardly stand up.
There were times when I thought I'm not going to make it.
Yeah, and these are numbers from UN.
Everything right? You see came from the...
These are studies done by UN. They are telling us that, yes, we have to act right now. So, this one, right?
Scientists are warning with increasing urgency that
I think we already saw this. This one, right?
Yeah, second.
Yeah, but it's playing the same.
scientists are warning with
I think we saw this already. Is it this one? First one. Yep. Thank you.
If you're like most people, you're probably feeling a little hopeless about climate change and the damage we've done to our planet. Well, now there's a new way to look at climate change and how to deal with it that might just turn that hopelessness into.
Excuse me.
If you're like most people, you're probably feeling a little hopeless about climate change and the damage we've done to our planet. Well, now there's a new way to look at climate change and how to deal with it that might just turn that hopelessness into hope. Climate change, as we know, is all about too much carbon in our atmosphere. But carbon is not our enemy. It's the building block of life. Everything alive is made of it, even us. The problem and the solution are simply a matter of balance. Let's step back and look at the 5 pools where carbon is stored on planet Earth. Starting about 500 million years ago, when plants first appeared on land, carbon began to cycle in an amazing balance between these pools, a balance that allowed for life as we know it to evolve. Then one life form, that would be us, figured out how to extract carbon from the fossil pool, which was pretty much a timeout zone for carbon. We've been burning it for energy, putting into play, and disrupting that balance. The way we manage land and do agriculture is moving even more carbon into the atmosphere. Specifically, we've moved 880 billion tons of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, which is heating up the planet and destabilizing our climate. The oceans have absorbed a lot of this excess carbon, throwing off the ocean's balance, resulting in ocean acidification and accelerating a mass extinction of sea life. So in order to save life as we know it, of course we need to stop burning fossil carbon. The big question is, where do we put this excess carbon to get the cycle back in balance? The good news is that the answer is literally right under our feet. It's the soil. Plants, using sunlight and water, naturally perform photosynthesis. They pull carbon in from the air and turn it into carbohydrates, sugars. Then they pump some of these sugars down through the roots to feed microorganisms who use that carbon to build healthy soil. Voila, carbon moved. The plants pump it in and the soil stores it. Nature's living technology is amazing. Scientists have recently discovered that applying a thin layer of compost can help regenerate healthy soil, setting up an ongoing feedback loop that brings more and more carbon into the soil each year. Together with other regenerative practices like not tilling the soil, planting trees and cover crops, and planned grazing, we can build and retain billions of tons of soil carbon. This is carbon farming. This is regenerative agriculture. Unlike more carbon in the atmosphere, more carbon in the ground is good for us. It makes healthy soil, which is nutrient rich and full of life and holds way more water. This means more nutritious food and crops that are more resilient in the face of drought. That's good news for farmers, families, and everyone who eats. Remember this. The way we grow our food, fiber, and fuel either puts carbon up into our atmosphere or pulls it down into the ground. The regeneration of soil is the task of our generation. Our health, the health of our soils, and the health of our planet are one and the same.
Interesting, right? So, let me go back to this. Now, like we saw, what's the impact inferior quality of soil can have, right? And what will continue to happen if we do not stop our soil from becoming sand. and not too far from us, right? Like we saw in that video in Texas, these sandstorms were not very uncommon, right? So yeah, coming to the next one, water security, right? Now, like we talked about, that the soil also does the job of retaining the water, right? Which is in turn is supplied to our crops and our fruits, vegetables, and that's how the nourishment comes. The organic content of the soil is largely dependent on the water which it retains, right? So let me play this video. It would just explain this.
I'm Andrea Beisch, an agricultural scientist with the Union of Concerned Scientists. Today, I'm going to talk about soil, the dirt under our feet. I'm going to show you how soil can help protect our communities and the farm. I'm Andrea Beisch, an agricultural scientist with the Union of Concerned Scientists. Today, I'm going to talk about soil, the dirt under our feet. I'm going to show you how soil can help protect our communities and the farmers who grow our food from floods and droughts. Here we have 2 soil samples, one that's healthy and rich in organic matter. For almost 20 years, the farm field that it came from has been protected and well fed. It's been covered with plants year-round and it hasn't been plowed. And here we have soil that's been left bare for many months of every year. It's also been degraded by regular plowing, leaving it less healthy. Now watch what happens when it rains. Hard. Our healthy soil over here is soaking up a lot of this downpour, like a sponge. And look what happened over here. The soil couldn't absorb the water and flooded. Today, much of the nation's farmland is treated this way. We plant crops that only grow for part of the year, leaving the soil bare and unprotected the rest of the time. Because this soil is healthier, it will hold water longer through times when there is little or no rain, helping plants withstand drought. The amount of water absorbed here might seem small, so let's see what this looks like on a larger scale. Imagine acres and acres of farmland made up of the unhealthy soil. The amount of water that isn't absorbed can run off and flood nearby communities. If the soil were healthier, it could absorb the water, and we'd see a lot less runoff.
Right. So like we saw, right, it's not an individual problem. It affects all of us in a lot of ways we don't even know already. So, yeah. And there's a lot of evidence that, this is also resulting in loss of livelihood, a lot of conflict and migration happens because of this very reason. Let me see if there is a small video here. Yeah, these are by the farmers.
ರಾಸಾಯನಿಕ ಮೇಲೆ ಹೆಚ್ಚಿನ ಅವಲಂಬನೆಯನ್ನ ಮಾಡಿದಾಗ ಮಣ್ಣು ಗಟ್ಟಿಯಾಗುತ್ತೆ. ಮಣ್ಣಿಗೆ ಸಾವಯವ ಅಂಶ ಹಾಕಲಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂತಂದಾಗ ಮಣ್ಣು ಮೃದುವಾಗಿರೋದಿಲ್ಲ. ರಾಸಾಯನಿಕ ಮೇಲೆ ಹೆಚ್ಚಿನ ಅವಲಂಬನೆಯನ್ನ ಮಾಡಿದಾಗ ಮಣ್ಣು ಗಟ್ಟಿಯಾಗುತ್ತೆ. ಮಣ್ಣಿಗೆ ಸಾವಯವ ಅಂಶ ಹಾಕಲಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂತಂದಾಗ ಮಣ್ಣು ಮೃದುವಾಗಿರೋದಿಲ್ಲ. ನೀರು ಕುಡಿದು ಇಂಗ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಸಾಧ್ಯ ಆಗೋದಿಲ್ಲ.
ನಮ್ಮ ಇಡೀ ಕುಟುಂಬನ, ನಮ್ಮ ಬಂಧು ಮಿತ್ರಗಳು ಎಲ್ಲರೂ ಕೂಡ ನಾವೇ ನಮ್ಮ ಕೈಯಾರ ವಿಷನ ಹಾಕಿ ನಾಶ ಪಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ವಿ. ಸೊ ಹಿಂಗೆ ಮುಂದೊಂದು ದಿನ ಹೋಗ್ತಾ ಇದ್ರೆ ಇವತ್ತು ನಾವು ಸತ್ರೆ ಭೂಮಿನೇ ಸತ್ರೆ ಇಡೀ ಒಂದು ಜೀವ ಸಂಕುಲನೇ ಇರೋದಿಲ್ಲ. ಸೊ ಭೂಮಿಯ ಒಳಗಡೆ ಸಂಪತ್ತನ್ನು ಒಂದು ಸಲ ಅದನ್ನು ಅಭಿವೃದ್ಧಿ ಪಡಿಸ್ಬಿಟ್ರೆ ನಮಗೆ ನಿರಂತರವಾಗಿ ಭೂಮಿಯ ಮೇಲೆ ಇರೋಂಥ ಸಂಪತ್ತು ನಿರಂತರವಾಗಿ ಬರುತ್ತೆ.
1 ವರ್ಷ ಆಯಿತು ನಾನು ಆಗ್ರೋ ಫಾರೆಸ್ಟ್ರಿ ಸ್ಟಾರ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಿ. ಡ್ರಾಸ್ಟಿಕ್ ಚೇಂಜ್. ನನ್ನ ಸಾಯಿಲ್ ಮಣ್ಣು ತುಂಬ ಚೇಂಜ್ ಆಗಿದೆ. ಯಾಕಂದರೆ ನಾನು ಚನಕೆ ಎತ್ಕೊಂಡೋಗಿ ಹಾಕಿದ್ರೆ ಪ್ರತಿಯೊಂದು ಗಿಡದ ಸುತ್ತಲೂ ಎರೆಹುಳು ಬರುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಅದು ನನಗೆ ತುಂಬ ಸಂತೋಷ. ಎರೆಹುಳು ಬಂದು ರೈತನ ಮಿತ್ರ. ಎರೆಹುಳು ನಾವು ರೈತನ ಮಿತ್ರ ಅಂತ, ಯಾಕಂದರೆ ಅದು ಬಿದ್ದಿರೋ ಎಲೆಗಳನ್ನೆಲ್ಲ ತಿಂದು ಗೊಬ್ಬರ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ. ಕೆಂಪಾಗಿರೋ ಮಣ್ಣು ನಿಧಾನವಾಗಿ ಬ್ಲ್ಯಾಕ್ ಕಲರ್ ಟರ್ನ್ ಆಗ್ತಾಯಿದೆ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ. ಇನ್ನೂ 1 ವರ್ಷ, ಇದು ಒಂದು 3-4 ವರ್ಷ ಬೇಕು ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಟೈಮು. ಬಟ್ ಮಣ್ಣು ಫಲವತ್ತಾಗಿ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ ಅನ್ನೋದಕ್ಕೆ ಸೂಚನೆಗಳದು. ಮಣ್ಣು ತೇವಾಂಶ ಹಂಗೆ ಇರುತ್ತೆ 15 ದಿವಸ ಆದ್ರೂ. ಎರೆಹುಳು ಬರ್ತಾ ಇದೆ.
ನಾವು ನೋಡಿ ಈಗ 1.5 ಎಕರೆ ಮಹಾಗನಿ ಮತ್ತು ಶ್ರೀಗಂಧ ಹಾಕಿದ್ದೀವಲ್ಲ, ಈ ಪ್ಲಾಂಟೇಷನ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಹಿಂದೆ ರಾಗಿ ಬೆಳೆಯೋರು ಬರೀ ಸೀಮೆ ಗೊಬ್ಬರ ಹಾಕಿ ಮಣ್ಣೆಲ್ಲ ಸತ್ವನೇ ಕಳ್ಕೊಂಡಿತ್ತು. ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ ಕಳೆ ಕೂಡ ಹುಡ್ದೇರ ಅಂತ ಮಟ್ಟಕ್ಕೆ ಆಗೋಗಿತ್ತು. ಈಗ ನೋಡಿ ನಾನು ಈಗ 2-3 ವರ್ಷದಿಂದ ಅದನ್ನು ತೊಗೊಂಡು ಕಲ್ಟಿವೇಷನ್ ಮಾಡಿಲ್ಲ. ಆ್ಯಕ್ಚುಲಿ ಅದು ಗಿಡ ಹಾಕ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಕಲ್ಟಿವೇಷನ್ ಮಾಡಿರಲಿಲ್ಲ, ಆಮೇಲೆ ಗಿಡ ಹಾಕ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಮತ್ತೆ ಹಂಗೆ ಬಿಟ್ಟಿದ್ದೀವಿ. ಈಗ ಕಳೆ ಬೆಳಿಬೇಕು, ಅಲ್ಲೇ ಕೊಳಿಬೇಕು. ಅದು ಕಳೆ ಬೆಳೆದು ಕೊಳೆತ ಮೇಲೆ ಅದು ಕಾರ್ಬನ್ ಕಂಟೆಂಟ್ ಭೂಮಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ, ನೀರನ್ನ ಹಿಡಿದಿಟ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೋ ಅಂಥ ಒಂದು ಪ್ರಮಾಣ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ, ಮರಗಳು ಕೂಡ ಸೊಂಪಾಗಿ ಬೆಳೀತವೆ.
ಏನೋ ಮಾಡೋದು ಬೇಕಾಗಿಲ್ಲ, ಸುಮ್ಮನೆ ತಗೊಂಡೋಗಿ ಮನೆ ತೋಟಕ್ಕೆ ಹಾಕ್ಬಿಟ್ರಿ, ಮಳೆ ಬಂದಾಗ ಕೊಳೆತ್ಕೊಳುತ್ತೆ, ಗೊಬ್ಬರ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಎಷ್ಟು ಆದಾಯ ಉಳಿಯುತ್ತೆ ಅಂತಂದರೆ ಬೇಸಾಯ ಮಾಡೋ ಖರ್ಚು ತಪ್ಪುತ್ತೆ, ಹೊರಗಡೆಯಿಂದ ಗೊಬ್ಬರ ಹಾಕೋದು ತಪ್ಪುತ್ತೆ, ಲೇಬರ್ ತಪ್ಪುತ್ತೆ. ಇಷ್ಟೆಲ್ಲ ಉಳಿದ ಮೇಲೆ ಕಡಿಮೆ ನೀರಾವರಿ ಕಡಿಮೆ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಯಾಕೆ ಅಂತಂದರೆ ಮಲ್ಚ್ ಆಗುತ್ತಲ್ಲ ನೋಡಿ, ಯಾವ ಆಪ್ರೇಷನ್ ಆಗಲ್ಲ.
ಅದು ಸತ್ಯ ಕೂಡ ಹೌದು. ಯಾಕೆಂದರೆ ಮರಗಳು ಎಲ್ಲಿರುತ್ತೋ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನೀರಿನ ಅಂಶ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಅದ್ರ ಜೊತೆಗೆ ನನ್ನ ಭೂಮಿನಲ್ಲಿ ನೀರಿನ ಅಂಶ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಇದ್ದಾಗ ನನ್ನ ಮಣ್ಣು ಫಲವತ್ತಾಗಿರುತ್ತದೆ, ಮಾಯ್ಶ್ಚರೈಸ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, ತೇವಾಂಶ ಕೂಡಿತ ಮಣ್ಣಾಗಿರುತ್ತೆ, ಮಣ್ಣು ಫಲವತ್ತಾಗಿರುತ್ತೆ.
How much water it can store means 800% of all the water that flows in all the rivers can be stored in the soil. This is the greatest dam you have. That if soil is kept organically rich, its ability to hold water is phenomenal. That's what needs to happen. If the soil is rich, our farmers need not be struggling on a daily basis. If the soil is rich, water will be there, vegetation will be there, everything that needs to happen will happen. Our very body is soil. The very body that we carry is soil. Most people don't understand this, unfortunately, till you put them in the soil as the last thing that we do. Till then, most people don't get it. But as we stand here, this very body is soil. The quality of the soil and the quality of the life that we are very directly connected. How rivers flow, how ponds are, how groundwater is, all this depends on the quality of the soil.
So like the farmers explained, right, the importance of the soil and how soil helps by retaining the water content inside of it. I was also not, those farmers are from India, but I was also reading the subtitles. I could not understand that language. There are a lot of languages spoken in India. All right, so we talked about the issues that soil, if we do not save soil, that can cause, right? Now, we will also talk about I'll invite my friend Tulsi here, that what are the things that we can do as an individual and as nations to prevent this from happening.
Thank you, Gaurav. Hi, my name is Tulsi. I'm a daughter of a farmer. I'm proud to be here and talk about soil, because I know the struggle, how farmers go through, and I know my father, how he struggled to keep up his soil to be healthy, and at the same time to be able to fulfill the demand of the crop that he has supposed to be getting every year. So if you go, for instance, we talk a lot about having unhealthy soil. For instance, think about we have a healthy soil for a moment, just to have a peace of heart. So what are the problems that have we discussed about is that water security. That is the major thing for every living being on this earth required after food, right? Water. So as just Sadhguru mentioned about it, it is the world best dam you could have It absorbs 800% more water than any rivers. Whenever we think about water, we directly go to the rivers, ponds, because those are the sources for water. But we never pay attention to that what is the biggest sink that hold the water, the rainwater we are getting in, is healthy soil. So how a soil will be healthy? It's supposed to have biodiversity. What is biodiversity? We already understood about it, that every teaspoon of soil should be containing 1 billion of microorganisms. That is when you call it that a healthy soil. That is when you call it has a biodiversity in it. So that means it contains in one single teaspoon 27,000 species of microorganisms working together for you, having the water in it, make the soil fertile, make the crops grow stronger, make the food that is coming out of that crop is nutritious enough for you to fulfill the deficiency in your body. To fetch, food is not only just about hunger. It also has to fulfill the demand of your body, that is your nutritiousness, that is the minerals, that is what make you strong, live happy, right? So, for an instance, this is how a healthy soil can solve the major three problems. So what is that? The water security. It can provide water security. It can be able to hold on to the biodiversity. And the third one about food. We all talk about world hunger. How many people are going to bed hungry? So when you have a fertile soil, that will be easy for you to have, to be able to fulfill the demand you are receiving. Because we are having, unfortunately, the same amount of land on this earth, but the people are growing. There is so much pressure on farmers that they have to fulfill the demand for the growing population. The population is not going to go down, it is still going to increase. But we are not going to increase the land, unfortunately. So whatever the farming lands we are using, to be scientifically talking about, the topsoil is only 10 to 12 inches. That's it. This 10 to 12 inches that has been using by human population since the first generation, and it will continue. So this 10 to 12 inches of topsoil has been feeding many, many generations, fed up with all that. Because we are extracting most out of this 10 to 12 inches for the growing population. This is the time it has to regenerate, because it is depleting. We are using it up over and again, over. So that is how bad it is going to get into. It is not just an answer, it's just not a new problem that happened overnight. It's just not a sudden calamity that is upon our shoulder. This has been told by our scientists, environmentalists, and humanitarians and welfares for World Health. So these are all people, these are all the departments talking about this issue from last 100 to 150 years, asking everybody to look into it. But somehow we were very comfortable in our seats, and we just doesn't want to get up from there and see what it is going to be for next generations. That is why we have to show infant, that we are doing right now. Because we are thinking, okay, I'm able to feed my hunger, that is fine. I don't have to really worry about what the next generations are going to feed, because it is at the very high risk that we have to act it right now. So I talked about the other three problems, taking an example of having healthy soil. So coming to the last problem, the major problem, that is global warming. We majorly all know that carbon dioxide is the main reason for having global warming, right? Climatic changes and global warming is because of this. So for example, from having a pretty good picture of having a healthy soil, I have to go back to having not having a healthy soil. So, imagine by 2050 there is no vegetation because of the topsoil was not rich enough. There were no biodiversity was going on, that farmers were not able to fulfill the food demand for the growing population. Imagine in that sense. So whatever the plant, we all know that the plant respires CO2, right? It takes carbon dioxide from the environment and it stores in its body, in its plant, parts, leaves. Okay, now there is no water, I'm sorry, there is heavy climatic changes going on. There is no way that the plant is going to survive. Of course, it will die. So then what will happen? So the died plant will decompose, obviously. So the decomposition will take place by the microbes in the, whatever the rest microbes in the soil. So these soil convert whatever the CO2 that has been taken by the plant and stored in the form of a carbon, and it converts back to CO2 and it emits back to environment. So when there is no vegetation on the soil at all, it emits 4 times more than the population. How much of a CO2 the population emits, it converts into 4 times. So that means it is 2,500 trillion tons of carbon dioxide emits back into the environment. That whatever the soil has been, storing upon all these years with the vegetation and all, it's now just, I'm giving up. Take it back. Take all this back to us. So what will happen? In science fiction movies, people are carrying oxygen cylinders, there is no vegetation outside. It's not any imaginary thing. This is around the corner by 2050 if we doesn't act right now. So this is how climatic change will also come under control. Not only all these 4 or 5 problems, the major environmental issues, 6 to 7 issues, can only be taken care when we only able to focus on soil and its soil health. So if you look at this old man, he is the one, as I mentioned, it is just not a newborn problem. It has been there already from 100 to 150 years back, and he is the one willing to take that responsibility on his shoulders, even though, okay, I will be anyways die by then, but let me not, because waste my life on sitting and thinking that what I did not do or what I did not act on at that time. So he's the one took up this job on his shoulders and talked with all the environmentalists, and he's the one took this very moment as a national moment, just not a national, it's a global moment. So he traveled on his bike, it's not right, it's 27 nations, and he drove 100 days continuously, every single, he have given meeting leaders, talking to people, try to bring awareness and bringing the world together to focus on this issue and try to bring all the nations together to make a policy about soil health. So he is the guy, and I know too much of problem, too much of, scared for the future. So what is the plan? So what should we do? Let's focus on that. So what can be done is that we need to make a policy that has to be applied globally. So making a policy for soil health is the main priority. How a policy can be made? I know how national policies can be made, because it is not a nation's problem. It is not a single nation problem, or not a poor country's problem or a developing country's problem. It is the whole, humankind's problem. It is that requires the world population to come together. They have to talk about it. So usually any global policies, how they will be made is it requires 60% of the global population has to talk about it, has to make a point that they are interested in this kind of a situation. They wanted to know, they wanted to see the action to take care of these issues. So for that, out of 197 nations, that means that 60% of the global population has to come together and show their interest. That is how it is going to be discussed under the global policy. Okay, so is this the first time that any policies that have been made globally? No, not at all. In 1987, all the 197 nations has come together and sat down about the CFSCs. This is one of the harsh chemical that has been introduced into the world, into the environment from simple, your refrigerators. Are we not still using refrigerators in our kitchen? Yes, we do, but we are not emitting that chemical. So these policies are like that. Like they were able to solve the issue of, and also at the same time, they were able to give the comfort. So the global policies are like that. They will sit down and they will make a policy that will come to the welfare of the both, welfare of the humankind, at the same time the welfare of the environment. So when it coming to this global policy is what we are suggesting, it has 3 steps. So the first step is we have to bring as many people as we can. We need to make sure as many people has this awareness, as many people has to show their interest to our governments, and that is the first step. So after, when we reach the 60% of the global population, as of today, 81 nations has agreed on this soil regeneration policies. They have agreed that yes, this is required. This is not for today, this is not for tomorrow. We are not here to talk about the previous generation fault, like how all this happened. There is no point in discussing how this is happening, or whose fault is this. This is the time we have to sit down and look for the future, look for the betterment of the future. So as of now, 81 nations has agreed on making soil regeneration policies. So we still have more countries to come forward and see the importance of soil regeneration policies. We already discussed in one of the other video that what is soil regeneration, what kind of policies they will look like. That is that, in between crops, make sure that your farming land is covered. For example, I have 2 acres of land, so make sure you have 10% of the land that has been covered with trees, or you have a cattle farm or something like that, in order to, support the farming land. That is how usually was right before, in the olden days, before you have this big farming lands, acres of lands without any trees, and cattle are roaming around. But it wasn't like that before. If a farmer, he will have some chickens, some cows, some pigs in the same area, and they were bringing all the nutrients that the soil required or a farming land required to go on. Yes or no, right? Obviously. So now when the business module of farming has come, and you have a stretch of acres of land without having cattle or cows or chickens or roaming around, or not providing the enough nutrients to that. So that is this my example of how the soil regeneration policies will be. They will not be the same with for USA or for India, because for India my environmental conditions are different. Here the environmental conditions are different. Here the demand and supply is different, economy is different. At the same time, my traditional methods are different, your traditional methods are different. So it is up to the nations how they will come up with the soil regeneration policies, and how they are going to support the welfare also, welfare of the farmers also, in order to give the subsidies and all that. So that is the second. So the first thing we are stuck at the first. We need to bring more awareness. We need to gather more people. We need to make sure people talk about it. So we have to still a lot to go, to go on, to take care. So how you can contribute to that? That is very important. I know you understood the importance of it. You have some knowledge right now. How you can contribute to that? So that is when. Next. So you will be. You let people know, willingly talk to your friends, let them know this is what is happening. So this is need to be taken care right now. So in the next level, how it is going to be, you can write a letter to our nation presidents and nation leaders, let them know this is my interest. I want to know that my food is having a minimum of 3% organic content. So when the soil is not having any organic content, or the bare minimum organic content, there is no chance you have a nutritious food. So making sure that the regeneration policies will bring back the 3% of organic content is the agenda, is the solution. That is what we needed for us, at the same time for the farmers' welfare too. So keeping those two things together in the balance is the solution for having a healthy soil and healthy humans. So you can write a letter to our national leaders, let them know that you are interested, you want to know that what kind of policies they are going to make, and you will be informed with it. So all you need to know is that you need to bring the awareness more and more. So that is all. Thank you for your time. If you guys have any questions, please let us know. We'll be happy to answer. I hope, I know there's a lot more going on right now, a lot more information to know. It's just not a simple thing. It's too much of information, so please let us know if you have any questions. Yes.
Since this is so tied into climate change, is there a party that opposes protecting soil because they oppose climate change resolution?
Can you repeat the question, please? Sorry.
In this political environment, climate change has been kind of wiped off by one party, and the other party thinks it's happening, and the other party is like, it's bullshit, right? So
Yes,
since this is tied into climate change, is that party
that
opposing
is why
soil?
it has to be made global policy. It is not a national policy that one party comes and supports a policy and go back. No. If for example, as I mentioned to you about CFCs, since 1987, we all have refrigerators made. Right? We all have refrigerators in our kitchen, but we are not emitting CFCs into the environment through our refrigerators. Now the ozone layer is started sealing up. So the global policies are like that. They will not completely rely on whoever the parties, national parties in ruling, who are not. They have to be followed.
Yeah. Just to add to that, right? Right now we are studying this as a recommendation. That okay, all leaders of the nation become aware that this is something that we will need, and when they realize that this is such an important thing, this might become one of the you never know, this can become a political party agenda, that okay, we will work on this. But right now this is starting as a recommendation only, that okay, we would need to act on this to save the planet, to save the soil, save the crops. Eventually, if this works, we will, we can think about imposing them as laws, right? Because right now it's not too late. Let's put it this way, that, okay, right now we are still in a situation where we can handle this, right? But 20 years from now, if nothing is done, then it may be too late. Then it may take the Mother Earth a lot of time to, cope up, right? So, yeah, irrespective of the parties, we would impose this as a recommendation that farmers can follow. And, we have worked with a lot of, this is entirely volunteer-based movement, right? And we have worked with a lot of scientists and a lot of personalities. They have actually come up with a very scientific plan, easy to understand by a farmer, that they would be, once the farmers are signing up for it, they would get in a very easy to understand, simple manner, stepwise manner, that what they need to do. Okay, and how do we ensure that farmers get that information? All we are asking is we should reach out to our leaders of the nation. We have already written a lot of letters, and they are already aware about it. The more support we get, the better and faster the action would be. So this is all the ask is. There's no hidden agenda. It's just that, okay, we know this is happening. 2050 is going to look very good based on what action we take now, right? So yeah, we have a lot of websites. You can write letters to them, right? But yeah, it's a good question, very interesting question. Does that answer it?
I just kind of have concerns that since it's tied to climate change, and climate change is so partisan in this country, do like Republicans oppose protecting soil because it's tied to climate change? I don't know,
Yeah.
It's all ridiculous, right? Like that we've gotten to that point, but
Right.
I would hate to see half the nation oppose protecting soil because we've tied it to climate change, and then they just go.
True. And I would also like to invite Shubhangi and my friend here. They are also active volunteers. Shubhangi is actually driving the entire movement in entire Bentonville, all over XNA. So a huge round of applause for her, because it's because of her that we are here and able to do this presentation. But yeah, we are more than happy if you have any other questions or you would like to support this movement. So.
Okay.
Like you were saying about whether this party or that party. It's what we have to do, the most important thing, that we need to show that we people want this.
Yes.
So for that we need to reach out by sending letters to these leaders, be it any party, whichever party is there in the government. We just have to show that we want this. Oh, they are there only to fulfill our mandate, right? Only if they see majority of the people are asking for it, then only they will go for it, because this is something which will happen in a long term. It will not happen in particular government's period, 4-year term, right? It will take at least 8 to 10 years to turn around this situation. So for that to happen, we need to talk to the current leadership. So then only they will act on it, because this is the thing which will not happen in 4 to 5 years. It is going to take minimum 10 to 15 years, that too if we start acting now. If we wait for 30 more years, then it would be impossible to turn back. Then it will take 100 more than 150 to 200 years to regenerate the soil, and in that period we will see lot of disasters. And these disasters will not come like in one big, the way we see in movies, like one big disaster is coming. It will not happen like that. It will happen in small scale. Means we will see those things, natural calamities will be happening slowly, and its scale will be increasing. It will be like that. So the most important thing is we need to voice out our concern about the soil extinction, that it is happening, and we need to show our mandate, and then only these soil regeneration policies will come. And for this we have prepared, means our Conscious Planet Foundation, we have prepared soil policy handbooks for 192 nations, in which we have given these recommendations for all these countries based on soil type, traditional practices, what is the latitudinal position of that country, and one more thing. So like based on these 4 things, we have prepared these soil policy handbooks in collaboration with top scientists, soil experts, and even for these regions like North America, South America, Europe, Asia, Australia, for all these regions also we have prepared these policy handbooks, soil policy handbooks, which will act as a directive for these countries, and governments can start acting on it immediately, and even we are there to provide the guidance for that. So that is the main thing, we need to voice out.
Is there copies available of those guidelines?
Yes, it is available on the website savesoil.org. If you go there, in resources sections, you will be able to see that.
Okay.
Yes, it is there.
Awesome.
Yeah, resources section.
Thank you.
Yeah. For North America, they have given the soil policy handbook.
And those are very easy guidelines, right? Like to change,
it has been
rotate
written
the
in
crops.
very simple language, which you and we can understand. It's not in like scientific or technical terms. It's written very in very simple words. Yeah.
A regular farmer would be able to implement it, just rotating the crops and things like that, right? So yeah. Any other question you'll have? So if not, we would request all of you to also go for go to this website. Oops. It's not showing.
Say, I think last one. Here. Yeah, it's also consciousplanet.org, you can say.
I would provide it to you via email if you have left your email address. But the URL is consciousplanets.org, right? And exhibition.savesoil.cc. Here, actually, on the consciousplannet.org, there is a template already. All you have to do is give your name and address, and you will be able to reach out to the presidents of this nation, depending on the nation you are on. So this is a global movement, and you can feel free to share it with your friends and family, and this would help us all and our next generation for sure. So yeah, we also appreciate you taking out your precious time this evening and standing for this movement. That means a lot for us and a lot for humankind. It says that we do have a hope for the future. Thank you so much for stopping by.